April 2023. Cold air enveloped the surface of Gull Lake, about 10 miles from the town of Brainerd, Minnesota. Light from the survey team's sonar screen skimmed across the murky water, illuminating an unusual mass lying 3 meters deep on the lake bottom. "Control, I need the forensics unit on scene," and the coroner dispatched immediately. The technician's voice crackled over the radio, interrupted by the wind whipping across the cold water. What began as a routine post-winter-thaw survey had now become something entirely different, something that would awaken haunting memories in Crow Wing County for over 12 years. The object was recovered in silence. It was the body of a woman wrapped in a blanket, heavily decomposed but still retaining human shape. Nearby, a forensic officer picked up a tarnished silver bracelet engraved with 3 letters, EL, the initials of Anna Lowell, a 41-year-old biology professor at the University of Minnesota Duluth, who vanished without a trace on the night of March 12, 2011. For 12 years, Anna's disappearance was just an unanswered question. A talented, independent woman who loved her work, she vanished during a weekend getaway at a lakeside cabin with her boyfriend Marcus Laird and old friend Dr. Clark Henning. The two men told 2 different stories. Marcus said she just went out to breathe the cold air. Clark claimed she took her phone to call someone. No one saw her return. In the days that followed, police and rescue teams swept through the pine forests, lake shores, and even the water's surface. No trace, no belongings, no witnesses. A gray women's glove was found near the dock, but it yielded insufficient DNA for identification. The search was halted. The file was closed with the dry notation, "Missing person, unresolved." In 2015, Clark Henning committed suicide in that very cabin. He left behind a single handwritten note. "I don't know what happened, but it happened in my house." From then on, the case fell into silence. The discovery under Gull Lake in April 2023 was not just the end of a missing person case. It was the first domino in a chain of events that would unearth secrets buried for over a decade. Because when authorities confirmed the body's identity, they understood this was no accident. What was hidden in 2011 was about to be exposed. And when they pulled the old files, the name Marcus Laird, once questioned but never charged, resurfaced. A man who had lived among that community, still walked those familiar roads, still smiled at neighbors, carrying a horrific secret for 12 years. The Anna Lowell case is not just a mystery solved, it is proof of the persistence of investigators who refuse to give up, the value of modern DNA and sonar technology, and the voice of science for victims once silenced. It is also the story of a small community around Gull Lake, where suspicion once crept between homes, where silence had become habit, and where old cracks would split wide open when the truth surfaced from the depths. What makes this case particularly haunting is that the answer was always so close, just a few hundred yards from shore, right under the ice, where people had walked daily. The man once interviewed, who insisted, "I don't know anything," still lived free, attended Anna's annual memorials, looked her family in the eye, and maintained an innocent facade while concealing the unimaginable. Before continuing this shocking story, take a second to subscribe and like this video. Your support helps us bring forgotten cold cases back into the light, where justice, though late, is never denied. Tonight we will retrace what happened at Gull Lake in 2011, explore the flaws in the initial investigation, and reveal the technological breakthrough that revived a case thought buried deep under ice. This is a story of loss, persistence, deception, and ultimately, justice delayed, but never forgotten. March 2011, the Gull Lake area in Crow Wing County, Minnesota, was still immersed in the chill of late winter. Ice on the lake had not fully melted, thin veils of mist drifting across dense black pines and the sparse wooden cabins scattered along the shore. In the southern part of the lake, where a dirt road led to an old wooden house on a slope, lived a man named Clark Henning, 65 years old, a retired psychologist and longtime acquaintance of Professor Anna Lowell. Anna, 41, was a biology lecturer at the University of Minnesota Duluth, renowned for her research on cold region ecology and her habit of working independently in the field. Her boyfriend, Marcus Laird, 39, had a prior drug-related conviction, but had been out of prison for years and was trying to rebuild his life. That weekend, Anna and Marcus drove from Duluth to Clark's cabin at his invitation, treating it as a short break after busy months of work. The weather was colder than forecasted, with strong winds blowing from the north, the thin ice on the lake emitting small cracking sounds as temperatures dropped. Inside the cabin, Clark prepared a simple dinner. The three talked about work, trips, and spring plans. After the meal, they lingered by the fireplace, had a few glasses of wine, then moved to the back porch where a hot tub sat on the wooden deck. The air was quiet, broken only by the wind against the walls and the gentle bubbling of the water. Around near midnight, as conversation tapered off, Anna stood up, put on her thick coat, and said she would step out for a moment to breathe the cold air before bed. The door opened, cold air rushed in, and she disappeared into the mist surrounding the cabin. Marcus and Clark waited inside, thinking she would return soon, but after a long while, there was still no sign. They walked around the porch area, called her name, used flashlights to scan the edge of the forest and the path down to the lake, but found nothing. When Anna's phone stopped ringing, Marcus called her mother to ask if she had contacted home. The family grew worried because Anna had never left without notice. Multiple unanswered calls followed, and after midnight, her relatives decided to report a missing person to local police in the Gull Lake area. The information was relayed to the night shift at the Crow Wing County Sheriff's Office, which handled the lake region and surrounding vacation homes. A patrol team of 2 officers was dispatched immediately. When they arrived, it was still dark, with thick fog and strong winds from the lake driving temperatures down sharply. The narrow dirt road to Dr. Clark Henning's cabin was covered in a thin layer of snow, tires leaving 2 deep tracks stretching along. Headlights swept across the ice-patched water, reflecting faint glimmers amid the pines. The small wooden cabin emerged in the fog, warm yellow light spilling from the front windows, thin smoke rising from the chimney. At the door, 2 men waited, looking tense. Clark Henning, the homeowner, wore a thick coat, his face pale from the cold. Marcus Laird, Anna's boyfriend, stood with arms crossed, head bowed low. When questioned, they said Anna had left the cabin around midnight, wearing her coat, saying she wanted to step out for some air, and had not returned since. They had searched around the house, down to the lake shore, but saw nothing. One officer noted that both appeared sober, with no clear signs of intoxication, though their voices trembled and eyes shifted. Inside the cabin, everything was tidy. On the dining table were 3 cups and a few unwashed plates, the fireplace still smoldering. The front door showed no signs of forced entry. Windows were closed. No evidence of a struggle, no overturned furniture. Police used flashlights to examine the back porch. The wooden floor was slick and wet, steam still rising thickly from the hot tub. At the edge of the deck, fresh snow had nearly covered old footprints, leaving only faint streaks extending toward the lake shore, not clear enough to determine direction. One officer noted in the scene report, "Area quiet, no light from neighboring homes, distance to nearest neighbor over 400 meters. Outdoor movement at this time poses high risk due to wind chill and slippery ice." When asked the last place they saw Anna, Marcus insisted she was speaking normally, showing no anxiety or intoxication, just stood up saying she would step out briefly. Clark said he hadn't paid much attention, thinking she only needed a few minutes. The 2 statements aligned on Anna leaving the cabin voluntarily, but differed on the time between her departure and when they started searching. After completing initial scene documentation, the patrol team created a temporary file, classifying the case as an adult missing person, cause undetermined, and forwarded details to the main investigation unit. They also decided to preserve the cabin's condition for a detailed survey the next morning. The back porch and lake shore were marked with reflective stakes to avoid disturbing evidence. A 500-meter radius around the cabin was designated as the initial search perimeter. The county sheriff ordered mobilization of a rescue team with search dogs from Brainerd at dawn, along with local volunteers for support. The night report clearly stated, weather conditions worsening, outdoor temperature -11 degrees Celsius, scattered snow, strong winds could alter the scene. Officers were required to remain at the cabin until daylight, maintaining radio contact every 15 minutes. Meanwhile, Marcus and Clark were instructed to stay inside, not leave the area, not move objects. They agreed, but according to police observations, neither slept for the rest of the night. Before ending the shift, the lead officer finalized the report with a short note. Scene quiet, missing cause undetermined, no clear evidence of crime. Fresh snow may have erased all traces. Request urgent search deployment at first light. Dawn was just breaking. The air around Gull Lake still thick with chill. Overnight snow had blanketed the pines, nearly isolating Dr. Clark Henning's cabin from the rest of the trail. The first rescue team of 6 arrived at the scene at 7 a.m., bringing 2 cadaver dogs trained to detect human scent and a small boat equipped with sonar gear. Outdoor temperatures remained below -10 degrees, thick fog limiting visibility to a few dozen meters. Officers set up a temporary command post on the clearing in front of the cabin, erecting a tent for area maps and communication equipment. The day's tasks were divided into 3 directions: one team searching the pine forest behind the house, a second checking along the lake shore to the old dock, a third surveying the partially unfrozen water surface. The county sheriff was present to direct operations, requiring preservation of the cabin's surroundings. The 2 men present the night of the disappearance, Marcus Laird and Clark Henning, were temporarily required to stay within the cordoned area, cooperating by providing details of where they had searched. The dogs were released at the back porch, believed to be Anna Lowell's last known location. One quickly picked up a scent and ran toward the lake shore, stopping at the water's edge, but not barking, just looking back at the handler with hesitation. That sign was noted in the search log. No clear human scent detected. Inconsistent response. The search team expanded along the trail into the sparse forest, checking every bush and rock crevice. Under the snow, they found only a few broken branches and a round indentation attributed to wildlife. No human footprints or personal items were discovered. By midday, the technical team took the sonar to the unfrozen water area about 40 meters from the cabin. They lowered the device to scan the lake bottom at nearly 3 meters deep, but returns showed only flat mud, no unusual objects. Winds strengthened, fog from the lake thickened, making observation difficult. One officer continuously recorded coordinates for later detailed mapping. Meanwhile, the shore rescue team completed sketching the scene, marking the cabin, hot tub, porch door, direction to the lake shore, reflective stake positions, and searched zones. Points were connected with red lines on satellite printouts of the area, clearly numbered for each check spot. The interim report compiled late afternoon noted, no clear accident signs, no physical evidence found, no biological traces or slide marks, possibly indicating a fall location. The sheriff signed off and ordered continued search for 1 more day before deciding next steps. In the forensic tech team's notes was an additional line, scene provides insufficient physical data to determine missing person's movement direction. Need to cross-reference all statements from the 2 witnesses present on March 12th night. As night fell, temperatures continued dropping. The search team packed equipment, set up temporary barriers around the lakeshore to prevent public access. The cabin was sealed with police tape. On the water, the sonar boat's lights reflected dimly then went out. The first day's search ended in silence, with the final log comment, no results, no crime indicators, but other possibilities not ruled out. The next morning, after the search team paused due to bad weather, the 2 last people in the cabin were required to go to the Crow Wing County Sheriff's Station for detailed statements. Interrogations were conducted separately in 2 different rooms. Marcus Laird was questioned first. He stated that evening, the 3 had dinner together, drank a few glasses of wine, listened to music, and talked. According to him, Anna was completely sober, just seeming tired after a long day. After leaving the table, they all went to the hot tub on the porch, which Clark had prepared. The atmosphere was pleasant. The three sat chatting for about half an hour. Then Anna said she felt a bit stuffy and wanted to step out to breathe some cold air. Marcus said he advised her to put on more layers because the outdoor temperature was very low. She smiled, replied she would be right back. When she went to the porch, he thought she was just standing nearby because the door was open and light from inside shone out. He said he waited about 15 minutes, then started worrying when she didn't return. He walked around the house to the lake shore, called her name several times, but got no response. Clark was inside at the time, unaware. Marcus emphasized he heard no noises or signs of anything unusual. In the record, the officer noted Marcus spoke fluently, but kept rubbing his hands, avoiding direct eye contact, showing some tension. After completing questions, police moved to interrogating Clark Henning. Clark recounted the same evening, but with differing details. According to him, Anna seemed not just wanting fresh air, but intending to call someone. He remembered her taking her phone, walking through the living room, then opening the door to step out. He was clearing dishes in the kitchen, heard the door close, but didn't pay attention. About half an hour later, Marcus came back in, asking if he had seen Anna. They started searching around the house, the porch, then along the path to the lake, but saw nothing. Clark said Marcus seemed more confused than scared, but thinking she was just walking, he wasn't panicked. When asked the exact time Anna left the cabin, he couldn't specify, just said, maybe around 11 p.m. Marcus said, near midnight. The discrepancy in time and Anna's behavior led investigators to note in the file, statements do not match, need to cross-check with phone data. After both statements were entered into the system, the investigation team decided to seize Marcus's and Clark's phones to check call history, messages, and cell tower connections. Both agreed to surrender them. The devices were sealed and sent to the department's tech unit. In the internal report, the interrogation officer assessed both statements describe the same event, but differ on key details: time, purpose of going out, and reaction after noticing the victim missing. Possible, one or both withholding information. Another comment in the remarks, Clark, calm, coherent, but evasive when mentioning hearing the door open. Marcus tense, constantly shifting posture, sometimes giving unnecessarily long answers. The file was forwarded to command with temporary finding, statement conflicts, need further verification. By day's end, investigators returned to the cabin to cross-check the site with the two men's descriptions. From the porch door looking toward the lake, the distance was just over 20 meters. Easy to hear calls if someone was near shore. This observation was added to the report. Likelihood of victim leaving cabin without being seen or heard in strong wind conditions is low. The record was closed late afternoon, marking the shift from routine search to detailed scrutiny of the only two witnesses' statements. The next morning, after the interrogation sessions temporarily concluded, the forensic technical team was dispatched to the cabin to conduct a detailed scene examination. The wooden house sat nestled among the lakeside pine forest, the entrance still bearing tire marks from rescue vehicles and reflective stakes from the first search day. The weather was dry and cold, old snow scattered by the wind, exposing dark patches of ground under the porch floor. The team's task was to document all items in the cabin, collect samples potentially bearing biological traces, and identify any environmental factors related to the disappearance. Filming began at the front door. Inside the living room, furnishings were neat. A large wooden table in the center still held 3 glass cups, 2 with red wine residue, 1 empty. On the armchair near the fireplace was a damp towel, folded haphazardly. The fireplace still had warm ashes, indicating the cabin was in use right before the incident. In the corner, women's slippers were placed neatly, but no coat or phone belonging to the owner was visible. From the living room to the back porch, the wooden floor was slightly slippery due to steam rising from the hot tub placed close to the railing. A thermometer recorded the water in the tub at 108 degrees Fahrenheit, higher than the standard 104 degrees Fahrenheit. One technician noted that the temperature control system might be faulty or manually increased. Around the tub, 3 other towels were draped over chairs, 2 of them still damp. One notable point was a small dark brown streak on the wooden floor near the porch edge, presumed to be dried liquid. The forensics team used alternate light sources, confirming a mild positive reaction for hemoglobin. The sample was numbered, photographed, and collected with a specialized swab. Additionally, they took wood samples from adjacent areas for comparison to determine if it was just wine or food residue. Scene measurements were conducted concurrently. From the porch door to the hot tub was 2.5 meters, the railing to the water's edge 15 meters, line of sight from inside the house to the lake unobstructed. The technical team noted that with the short distance and open space, any noise on the porch could be clearly heard from the living room if the door was open. This made it unusual that no one heard or saw Anna leave. Inside the cabin, items were photographed and numbered by position: 3 glass cups, a half-open wine bottle, a wooden plate with nutshells, and 2 half-folded towels. All were sampled for fingerprints and possible DNA. The wooden floor area near the porch door was scraped for the top layer for chemical testing to check for slippery substances or foreign agents that could cause someone to slip. One technician also took a water sample from the tub for composition analysis, as the unusually high temperature might relate to an accident. Police photographed the entire cabin from multiple angles, creating a layout diagram including the living room, kitchen area, outdoor porch, and hot tub position. The scene map was printed on-site, marking sample collection areas with specific symbols. The preliminary report noted no signs of struggle or property damage, no overturned furniture, no evidence of forced entry. However, the existence of the suspected blood streak, abnormally high hot tub temperature, and the traceless disappearance made the technical team assess this was not simply a routine accident. In the temporary conclusion, the forensic team leader wrote, "No direct violence indicators found, but possible incident related to physical factors or intentional environmental adjustment." The entire cabin was sealed after documentation. All samples were numbered from 01 to 17, sealed in specialized bags, and transferred to the BCA laboratory in St. Paul for detailed forensic testing. Before leaving, the technical team rechecked the heating system, disconnected power to the hot tub, and locked all doors. Red warning stakes were placed around the porch and path down to the lake, marking the no-entry zone. The scene log for the examination day ended with a short note: cabin secure, sufficient samples collected, no direct crime evidence, but abnormal environmental factors require further analysis. After completing the scene examination, the investigation team proceeded to compile all obtained data to reconstruct an accurate timeline of the disappearance night. Information sources included phone logs of the 3 people in the cabin, cell tower data near Gull Lake, credit card receipts from the store, where Marcus Laird stopped en route to the cabin, and traffic camera images along County Road 77. The goal was to determine the last time Anna Lowell was seen and evaluate the reasonableness of Marcus and Clark's statements. The report showed that, according to Marcus, Anna left the cabin around near midnight. He stated that after waiting about 15 minutes, he searched around the house, then called Anna's mother to ask if she had contacted home. However, data from the cell tower near the lake showed Marcus's phone briefly left the cabin coverage area, returning after just over 20 minutes. Specifically, his phone signal connected to the tower near the Southern Lake dock at 11:42 p.m. Then back to the cabin area at 12:06 a.m. This detail contradicted his statement that he did not leave the cabin during the search. The hot tub water sample contained trace chlorine, calcium, and ethanol, but insufficient for source determination. The technical report concluded these signs were consistent with alcohol or stimulant use at the scene shortly before sample collection. When results were forwarded to the Crow Wing County Investigation Office, police summoned Marcus Laird and Clark Henning back for clarification. In the supplemental questioning, Marcus admitted that on the incident evening, they drank alcohol and tried stimulants that Clark brought out. He said it was small pink pills, and he didn't remember the feeling clearly, as he only used once. When asked specifically what drug, Marcus said Clark called it relaxant, helps stay alert. Conversely, in separate interrogation, Clark completely denied it. He stated Marcus brought the substance, and he himself only drank wine. He insisted never using stimulants and said Marcus had a drug history and sometimes bragged about new stuff. The opposing statements were clearly recorded in the minutes, and officers assessed one of the two was deliberately evading the stimulant's origin in the samples. However, no physical evidence pointed to who directly used or supplied it. DNA cross-matching on towel and glass samples yielded no definitive results. Traces were faint, insufficient cells for full genetic sequencing. In some samples, DNA was degraded due to heat and environmental exposure time. The forensic lab noted no clear biological profile for individual identification. The Crow Wing County Sheriff, after reviewing the entire file, directed that the case remain at missing person investigation level, lacking basis for criminal reclassification. However, he ordered continued monitoring of the two final witnesses and collection of medical and stimulant use history for both. In the subsequent internal meeting, officers analyzed the situation. If MDMA was indeed used, it could affect behavior and perception of those present, altering the event sequence that night. The biochemistry team's summary report also noted detected stimulant amounts were small, insufficient to conclude dosage or exact timing. This made accident or abnormal physiological reaction hypotheses unexcludable but unprovable for intent. Investigators added to the file, residual MDMA and ethanol indicate stimulant use at scene, but victim's role in process undetermined. For objectivity, the lab retained remaining samples for deeper analysis, if needed. All testing minutes were attached to the file under Code F1147A, including biochemistry results, microscopic images, and spectra charts. When the report was sent to the county prosecutor's office, the investigator's final remark was concise. No clear DNA, no direct crime proof. However, scene has abnormal factors. Recommend continued monitoring and behavioral information collection on two main witnesses. The initial testing phase file closed in silence, but in internal remarks, many officers agreed the new details, especially stimulants' presence, made Anna Lowell's disappearance no longer simple as before. When the forensic lab results showed traces of stimulants, but could not determine the source, the investigation team shifted focus to analyzing human factors. The goal was to examine the complete personal records, behavioral history, and relationships among the three people present in the cabin on the night Anna Lowell went missing. Marcus Laird's file was requested for extraction from the Minnesota State Police Data Center, where all criminal records and civil violations are stored. The report revealed that Marcus had been arrested in 2005 for possession and use of synthetic drugs. After release from prison, he participated in a community rehabilitation program, but had 2 violations of probation conditions due to drinking alcohol and fighting in a bar. In civil records, he had been married twice. The first marriage ended after 3 years because his wife claimed mental abuse, and the second ended in 2010 due to prolonged conflicts and irreconcilable differences. Numerous reports noted that Marcus had an erratic temperament, prone to irritability, especially when using alcohol or stimulants. Old friends described him as friendly on the surface, but quick to explode. Although there were no serious violent convictions, the file still listed administrative fines for disorderly conduct and damaging public property. The investigating officers assessed that this past made Marcus a subject requiring close scrutiny, especially since the scene test results confirmed the presence of MDMA and ethanol, 2 substances previously linked to his prior violations. On the opposite side, Dr. Clark Henning's file revealed a different form of instability. He had been a reputable clinical psychologist in Minneapolis, also teaching part-time at a local college. However, in 2014, His professional license was revoked by the Minnesota Board of Medical Practice following a complaint from a female patient about conduct exceeding professional ethical boundaries. The board's report stated he had an inappropriate personal relationship with a patient under treatment, and although not criminally prosecuted, he was barred from practicing in psychological counseling. From then on, Clark moved to live in seclusion at the cabin on Lake Gull, rarely interacting with neighbors. Neighbors in the area described him as polite but reserved, living alone, with occasional visitors in the summer. When investigators contacted former colleagues, some said he had shown signs of depression after losing his license, and spent most of his time reading books, listening to music, or joining meditation groups. This information was compiled in the risk assessment report, showing that both Marcus and Clark had histories of psychological and behavioral instability. Anna Lowell, the missing person, was the central link connecting the two. According to her personal file, Anna first met Clark at a scientific seminar more than 10 years earlier, when he was still teaching. They maintained contact as colleagues until Anna worked in Duluth. Later, through mutual friends, she met Marcus Laird, who had worked in sales, with an outgoing and attractive personality. Some of Anna's relatives stated that she and Marcus started dating around 2009, but the relationship was unstable, with multiple breakups and reconciliations. In 2010, Marcus had visited Clark for advice on improving the relationship, and from then on, the two men became acquainted. When asked, Anna's family said they had little fondness for Marcus due to his addiction history, but respected her choice. Colleagues in her department described Anna as having a tendency to be forgiving, believing anyone could change, which might explain why she continued seeing Marcus despite past disagreements. In the social analysis file, investigators noted, Anna is highly independent, but emotionally oriented, easily trusting those close to her. The existence of a triangular connection between a woman with social standing, a boyfriend with a criminal past, and a middle-aged friend who had lost his reputation, led police to begin considering the possibility of personal conflicts arising on the night of the incident. The investigation team's behavioral analysis report noted, the behavioral history factors of Marcus and Clark indicate the potential for arguments, especially with stimulants involved. Motives stemming from jealousy or violent behavior cannot be ruled out. However, in the criminal investigation file, there was no physical evidence to support this hypothesis. No injuries, no signs of struggle, no witnesses. All data remained at the level of inference based on personality and past. The report concluded the personal background evaluation with a short note. Behavioral data indicates an unstable relational environment, but no direct evidence. The case is temporarily stalled. Continue monitoring and verification. 3 months after Anna Lowell was reported missing, the case file remained virtually at a standstill. Continuous search operations around Lake Gull, the pine forest, and along dirt roads yielded no results. The Crow Wing County Rescue Force recorded a total of 12 survey operations, including 3 using sonar to scan the lake bottom and 2 mobilizing low-flying helicopters for overhead observation. Each time, the teams returned with the same old conclusion: no physical signs, no personal items, no witnesses seeing the missing person leave the area. Even the gray glove found on the south shore of the lake, the only piece of evidence, yielded no clear DNA results after examination. Forensic experts concluded the sample had been damaged by cold and moisture, insufficient for genetic extraction. This left the case in a near-total deadlock. By late May, the search scope was narrowed. Areas once marked red on the map, the lakeshore, dock, forest behind the cabin, were sequentially removed from warning stakes. The rescue team's summary report was over 50 pages long, with the opening paragraph stating, "No evidence the victim remains in the surveyed area. No signs of natural accident, animal attack, or confirmed criminal activity." In the comments section, the search team leader added a handwritten line, "Lake Gull has given back everything it could, except the answer." After the operation ended, Dr. Clark Henning's cabin was unsealed and returned for use to the owner. Police handed over the keys but advised keeping the scene intact for a while, in case of new developments. Clark agreed, but his words clearly showed fatigue. He told the investigator he would stay a few more months, then decide. Marcus Laird was no longer residing in Minnesota at that time. According to civil administration records, he left the state around mid-May, moving to live with relatives in Wisconsin. When police contacted him, he confirmed over the phone that he had left to avoid unnecessary attention. In the recording, his voice was hoarse and cautious, saying he couldn't stand seeing the lake and that house every day. Leaving the state was not illegal, but caused the investigation agency to lose a key witness for on-site verification if needed. Meanwhile, Anna's family continued periodic contact with the county sheriff's office, hoping for new information. They sent additional photos, personal notes, and even Anna's emails before disappearance, but no document indicated she intended to leave or was in trouble. Each month, the sheriff's office sent a brief update report, no new developments. In an internal meeting at the end of June, officers presented the compiled results of the entire investigation process. The document had 3 parts: scene, personal background, and evidence. The first part recorded all samples tested, with no usable DNA found. The second listed relationships among the 3 present on the night of the incident, but lacked elements to determine criminal motive. The final part, summarizing evidence, had only a short list: 03 towels, 03 glass cups, 01 liquid sample, 01 floor stain, 01 gray glove. All lacked probative value. The meeting ended in silence, and the minutes were signed by the sheriff with the content: case classified, undetermined missing person, file temporarily closed. Will re-examine if new evidence arises. On June 28, 2011, the county sheriff's office sent an official notice to Anna Lowell's family, confirming the termination of active search operations. In the letter, they wrote, "After 3 months of investigation, we found no evidence of crime or accident. Miss Lowell's case will be stored in the state's missing persons system and reviewed periodically." The family received the letter in early July, with a copy kept in the file. The final lines in the Crow Wing County Police Summary Report were simply, "No witnesses, no physical evidence, no new investigative leads, low survival probability." In the archives, Anna Lowell's case was numbered 1174 and placed in the unresolved missing person category. The lakeside cabin was returned to its owner, and the cold water beneath the melting summer ice saw no more search teams return. The following winter, the area around Lake Gull sank back into quiet, as if no disappearance had ever occurred there. 4 years after Anna Lowell's disappearance was classified as undetermined, file 1174. It remained untouched in the Crow Wing County Police Archives. No new discoveries, no additional witnesses, and none of the involved parties were called back for questioning. Marcus Laird settled in Wisconsin with no further legal violations. Clark Henning continued living alone in the wooden cabin on Lake Gull, the former crime scene, almost completely cutting off external contact. He rarely appeared in the town of Brainerd, only occasionally going to the supermarket for essentials. Neighbors around the lake seldom saw him. Occasional fishermen said his cabin always had lights on at night, but rarely showed any sign of life. In March 2015, amid an unusually cold spring, the county sheriff's office received a call from a resident reporting a strange smell around the Henning cabin. The patrol team arrived in the afternoon. The wind from the lake was still biting cold, the house silent with doors locked tight. When they broke the front door lock, the interior scene was completely still, furniture intact, tables and chairs lightly dusted. In the living room, Clark Henning was found dead, sitting in an armchair, with a handgun on the floor. Initial examination determined he had shot himself in the head, dying at least 2 days prior. No signs of struggle or a second person in the house. On the table next to the chair was a neatly placed envelope, with the words, "Don't blame anyone," written on the outside. Inside was a handwritten note: "I don't know what happened, but it happened in my house." The paper was signed Clark H., with the date matching the estimated time of death. Police documented the scene, sealed the cabin, and sent the letter and weapon to forensics. Fingerprint analysis confirmed a complete match with Clark Henning, with no traces of others. The autopsy report stated clearly, no alcohol or drugs in blood, no other suicide note besides the paper on the table. His death was ruled a suicide. However, the wording in the letter immediately drew the investigation team's attention. The phrase "it happened in my house" made police unable to ignore the connection to the unsolved disappearance 4 years earlier. The next day, Anna Lowell's file was pulled from archives for re-examination. A small task force was formed, consisting of 3 veteran county officers and a representative from the State Investigation Bureau. They returned to the cabin to cross-check remaining traces and search for Clark's personal documents. In the house, police seized additional notebooks, an old laptop, and a few CDs containing personal stored data. All were sent for examination, but revealed no content related to Anna. In the notebooks, pages mainly recorded books, meditation, and scattered personal notes. No diary entries about specific events from 2011. The second scene re-examination report confirmed no additional evidence proving direct link between Clark Henning's death and Anna Lowell's disappearance. However, in the comments section, one investigator added a note. Suicide note expresses guilt or obsession. Unclear what he was referring to. The suicide case file was stored separately. But immediately after, Anna's disappearance was officially tagged Cold Case 1174L, moved to the Unsolved Cases category. In the Minnesota State Database System, the case was marked gray, meaning no active investigation, only reviewed with new information. Anna's family was briefly notified by letter. Police found Clark Henning deceased, and though he left a note, no new evidence related to the disappearance. His letter was photocopied and sent to them, just one sentence. Anna's mother, after reading, said she believed he knew something but took it to the grave. On Lake Gull, that summer the water rose high, trees lush green, while the wooden cabin remained locked for many months. The final 2015 compilation report was signed by the county's new sheriff, stating, "No criminal evidence, no open investigation activity. File 1174L, moved to cold case. Will be periodically reviewed by the designated unit." After that, the case sank completely into silence. Office staff still passed by that 400-page file during catalog reviews, but no one opened it anymore. By year-end, in the statewide summary statistics, Anna Lowell's disappearance was listed as one of 143 unsolved files. Next to her name was a brief note, "Missing, presumed dead." 12 years after Anna Lowell vanished, the file coded 1174L remained in the Minnesota State Justice System's cold case category. In early 2023, the State Bureau of Criminal Apprehension launched a special program called Project Revisit, aimed at re-examining unsolved missing persons and homicide cases from the 1990s to 2010. The project's goal was to leverage advancements in DNA technology, digital data, and geophysical scanning equipment to determine if any cases qualified for re-investigation. Among over 500 files reviewed, Anna Lowell stood out for meeting 2 rare criteria. All original evidence was still preserved under proper standards at the BCA St. Paul storage. And the scene environment, Lake Gull area, had changed little over time. Additionally, the 2015 death of Dr. Clark Henning, a direct involved party, still left questions in the internal data system. After review, the BCA Directorate approved restarting Case 1174L in February 2023. This decision was sent to the Crow Wing County Sheriff's Office, requesting coordination to provide original files, scene maps, and all sealed samples from 2011. The reinvestigation was assigned to Lieutenant Ellen Ferris, head of the BCA's Cold Case Unit. Ferris had nearly 20 years of criminal investigation experience, having cracked many cases via new generation DNA analysis. In the handover minutes, she identified 3 main investigative directions. First was retesting samples with advanced DNA technology, specifically touch DNA and MVAC extraction techniques, allowing separation of epithelial cells from extremely small samples. Priority evidence included the floor stain on wood, towels, and the glove recovered from the lake shore. Second was digital data recovery, including mobile phone logs, cell tower data, and GPS records from Marcus Laird's vehicle, which could not be exploited in 2011 due to technological limits. The goal was to reconstruct the movement paths of those present on the incident night. Third was terrain and lake gull bottom survey using modern high-resolution sonar, combined with 3D LiDAR scanning to detect buried or mud-trapped anomalies. In the work plan presented in early March, Ferris noted clearly, Case 1174L still has potential for evidence recovery. Need to review all existing samples and apply current technology to determine if the victim truly died, and if so, locate the remains. She also requested the State Justice Office to re-examine CODIS database access for comparing new DNA with old criminal profiles. In the first month, all samples were transferred from St. Paul's storage to the BCA's main lab. The technical team began recataloguing each sealed package, noting preservation conditions. Despite over 12 years, most evidence remained in good condition, towels intact in vacuum bags, dry wood samples, and liquid vials still sealed. The internal report noted this was one of the few cold cases retaining all original evidence undamaged. While the forensics team conducted tests, Ferris coordinated with BCA's tech department to extract old 2011 digital data from files. Phone logs, previously paper-only, were digitized and cross-checked with carrier systems, now capable of recovering location signals by the minute. The goal was to rebuild Marcus Laird's phone movement map on the incident night to verify exact timing and distance from the cabin. Concurrently, Ferris contacted the State Natural Resources Department for permission to resurvey the Lake Gull area. In the proposal, she specified deploying dual-frequency sonar capable of detecting small objects in deep mud layers, unlike the crude technology used in 2011. Agencies agreed to cooperate, with the survey planned for 3 weeks. By late March, with all procedures complete, BCA officially announced restarting the Anna Lowell file. The internal release stated, File 1174L selected in 2023 Cold Case Re-Exam Program. Basis, fully preserved samples, stable environmental factors, potential for new generation DNA and sonar application. An additional handwritten note by Lieutenant Ferris at the end of the minutes. We may not know what really happened in 2011, but this file deserves to be heard again. The re-examination of samples began in the first week of April 2023 at the BCA's Central Laboratory in St. Paul. Old evidence items were retrieved from storage, including a sealed fabric sample from 2011, noted as fiber piece collected from the rear porch area of the cabin, becoming the top priority for touch DNA analysis. Technicians opened the seal under strictly controlled conditions, recording that the sample remained intact with no signs of contamination. The touch DNA method allows extraction of residual epithelial cells from skin contact, even at minimal levels. The analysis process lasted many hours, from solution washing to sample separation and gene sequence amplification via PCR reaction. When the sequencing data was entered into the system, BCA's automated software compared it to the Minnesota State DNA database, then expanded to the federal CODIS repository. By the end of the day, preliminary results showed a match with the profile of an individual previously stored due to a prior criminal case, Marcus Laird. The similarity level reached 99.97%, sufficient to confirm the same biological source. The official forensic report was issued 2 days later, stating clearly, male DNA sample from evidence item V12 has a sequence matching the referenced DNA sample of Marcus Laird, stored in the CODIS system under case number MN 2005-418. Additionally, quantitative analysis confirmed the DNA quantity was large enough to prove direct contact, not cross-contamination. The conclusion was noted in the evaluation section. Evidence item V12 was directly handled by Marcus Laird. This result was urgently forwarded to Lieutenant Ellen Ferris, the lead investigator. In an internal meeting with forensic experts, Ferris requested a re-examination of all remaining evidence to determine if any other samples carried Marcus's DNA. 2 towels and 1 glass cup were also tested, but the DNA yield was too low for clear results. However, The discovery on the rear porch fabric sample alone was enough to reopen the entire case as a criminal investigation. The BCA meeting minutes on April 7 stated clearly, based on DNA test results, Anna Lowell's disappearance is upgraded to a criminal investigation for suspected homicide. Proposal to collaborate with the Crow Wing County Prosecutor's Office to obtain search warrants and collect additional evidence. A 4-page summary report was sent to the county chief prosecutor. In it, Ferris detailed the testing process, including a gene data comparison table between the sample and CODIS profile. Her conclusion was bolded: cannot rule out the possibility that Marcus Laird was at the scene and had direct physical contact with the sample collected from the last known location of the victim. The prosecutor's office responded quickly. After review, they agreed to support legal procedures for search warrants at Marcus Laird's current residence in Wisconsin, along with access to personal electronic devices and vehicles. While awaiting approval, BCA continued cross-checking this DNA sample with other 2011 evidence to ensure no errors. 3 other control samples, including a floorwood piece, a glass cup, and a towel sample, all yielded negative or insufficient data. Thus, the final conclusion remained: only the rear porch fabric contained DNA matching Marcus Laird. This trace discovery changed the case's nature entirely. From a vague missing person file, it now had the first legal evidence proving a potential suspect's presence at a key scene location. The BCA internal report stated clearly, high gene match level, error probability under 1 in 10 billion, meeting criminal prosecution standards. Lieutenant Ferris immediately directed the behavioral analysis team to re-examine all of Marcus's 2011 statements, focusing on details about when he claimed to leave the cabin to look for a dropped flashlight. In the old minutes, he had asserted he never went to the rear porch after Anna left, completely contradicting the newly discovered DNA evidence. The new evidence was added to the temporary file under Code Evidence Group BCA 23. On April 9th, Ferris personally flew to the Crow Wing County Prosecutor's Office for a direct presentation. The meeting lasted over 2 hours. At the end, the prosecutor signed approval for warrants to search the home, vehicles, and personal storage devices of Marcus Laird in Wisconsin. The warrant was issued by the Minnesota State Court, with interstate effect through coordination with the Wisconsin Rapids Police Department. Ferris's meeting notes ended the report with a short line: after 12 years, the scene has finally spoken. The Anna Lowell case, once classified as an undetermined missing person, was officially reclassified as homicide investigation, active case 1174L. In mid-April 2023, with DNA results confirming Marcus Laird's trace at the scene, Lieutenant Ellen Ferris directed the next step in the investigation plan: a full resurvey of Lake Gull's bottom using new generation LiDAR sonar equipment. This is a scanning technology combining dual-frequency sound waves and laser light feedback, allowing 3-dimensional reconstruction of objects under mud and murky water with high accuracy. The mobilized force included the BCA's Hydrographic Survey Team, 2 LiDAR specialists from the State Natural Resources Department, and 3 professional divers experienced in lake body recovery cases. The search area was circled within a 200-meter radius from the south dock, where Marcus's phone signal had appeared on the incident night. Preparations began early morning on April 3rd. The lake surface was still slightly cold, winter ice fully melted, water murky with floating decayed leaves. A survey boat was equipped with bottom-mounted sonar and bow-installed LiDAR scanner, moving slowly in circles around the marked area. Each scan sent sound pulses down to about 5 meters deep, recording feedback from solid objects. Data displayed live on a computer screen as a heat map, with areas of differing material density highlighted in dark colors. In the first 3 hours, most images showed only flat mud bottom, a few large roots, and submerged rocks. Around noon, as the boat scanned an area about 45 meters southwest of the dock, the technician detected an anomalous reflection zone with an elongated shape, sized similar to a human body. The object lay sideways in the mud layer, one end tangled in underwater roots at nearly 3 meters deep. Feedback signals indicated higher density than surrounding mud, not wood or rock. The survey team leader ordered the boat stopped, dropped a positioning buoy, and immediately reported to Lieutenant Ferris on shore. The scan images were printed on-site and filed, human form object, size 1.6, 1.7 m, coordinates N46°2421, W94°2018. A diver team was sent down. Lake water was murky and cold, visibility only a few dozen centimeters. They followed the buoy line and reached the object after nearly 10 minutes. The diver report noted, object discovered wrapped in fabric layer, dark color, soft, lower part tangled in roots, upper part sunk in mud. Under Ferris's direction, the dive team secured the object with cables and lifting nets. The recovery process took nearly 2 hours due to thick mud and intertwined roots. By early afternoon, the object was brought to the surface. It was a female body in advanced decomposition, wrapped in a beige blanket darkened by mud, fabric fibers frayed. The body was placed on a stainless steel stretcher and immediately covered with sealed tarps. Forensic staff filmed, measured dimensions, and took water samples around the recovery area for testing. The on-scene report stated clearly, female body, estimated height 1.65 m, wearing one-piece dark green swimsuit, no jewelry, soft tissue decomposed, long bones, and hair intact. A notable sign was a clear arc-shaped indentation on the neck, not matching blanket wrapping marks, and dry lungs, typical in asphyxiation victims rather than drowning. Lieutenant Ferris directly oversaw transporting the body to the Crow Wing County morgue for cold storage before transfer to BCA St. Paul. Small tissue and hair samples were taken on-site for rapid DNA comparison. Cross-matching results were completed in 48 hours. DNA sequences from arm bone and hair matched 100% with Anna Lowell's 2011 stored sample. The victim identity confirmation report was sent to BCA the same day. Victim DNA matches 100% with reference profile Anna Lowell. Identity confirmed. This information was marked in red ink in case log 1174L. The first time in 12 years, the missing woman was officially confirmed dead. In the preliminary autopsy report, the medical examiner noted, no drowning signs, no water in lungs, neck tissue swelling, and damage suggest mechanical asphyxia. No long bone fractures, no skull trauma. Cause of death, asphyxia. Temporary conclusion, death by asphyxiation, not drowning. Lieutenant Ferris signed confirmation and filed minutes to BCA. Victim Anna Lowell's body discovered at Lake Gull, coordinates N46°2421, W94°2018, depth 3.1 m. Body wrapped in blanket, no binding signs, no weights attached. Evidence indicates body placed in water while unconscious, not accidental. The BCA internal bulletin the next day stated briefly, Case 1174L, status update. Body recovered, probable homicide. That same afternoon, the lake area was sealed for additional water and sediment sampling. Technicians determined flow direction and object drift potential, calculating the body could have drifted from near the cabin to the discovery spot due to lake bed slope, about 40 meters. This data was stored for scene reconstruction. In the compilation report to the Crow Wing County prosecutor, the final line stated, autopsy and victim identity results confirm criminal elements. Case officially classified homicide, murder. After over a decade in the undetermined missing category, the Anna Lowell file was finally returned to active investigation status, with undeniable evidence, her body found in the very place everyone once thought held nothing more to discover. Immediately after Anna Lowell's body was brought to the BCA Forensic Center in St. Paul, a detailed autopsy was conducted under the supervision of Chief Medical Examiner Dr. Melissa Hart, along with 2 specialist assistants and a representative from the Crow Wing County Prosecutor's Office. Work began at 8 a.m. on April 6 in a temperature-controlled dissection room to preserve tissue samples. The victim's body, confirmed as soft tissue decomposed but skeletal structure intact, was placed on a large stainless steel table. The initial autopsy phase focused on overall examination height 165 centimeters, estimated living weight about 58 kilograms. Remaining hair was about 12 centimeters long, mixed with mud residue. Clothing consisted of a one-piece dark green swimsuit, stretch fabric, no tears, indicating no strong impact before death. On the neck, the forensic team noted a deep arc-shaped indentation about 2.8 centimeters wide, running from the left jaw angle to the sternum, with slight subcutaneous hematoma. Soft tissue analysis showed neck muscle damage and tracheal hemorrhage. Eyes remained intact, but under the eyelids showed petechial hemorrhaging, classic mechanical asphyxia sign. Inside the lungs, detailed checks revealed empty alveoli, no fluid, completely ruling out drowning. The heart was sectioned longitudinally, no abnormal clotting. Other internal organs were in natural degradation from prolonged decomposition. Spinal fluid, muscle tissue, and hair samples were taken for toxicology. The subsequent toxicology report yielded surprising results. MDMA concentration in muscle and blood about 10 times typical recreational levels at 2.8 mgl, enough to cause cognitive disruption, disorientation, and hallucinations. Ethanol level was 0.06%, equivalent to mild intoxication. No sedatives or anesthetics detected. Dr. Hart noted in comments, victim's chemical state indicates MDMA and alcohol use near time of death. High concentration sufficient to impair movement and cognition, but not directly fatal. The forensic team continued examining the throat and cervical spine, finding small soft tissue tears around the thyroid cartilage, consistent with strong hand or soft object pressure in a short time. Cervical bones intact, indicating force just enough for asphyxia without bone damage, characteristic of manual strangulation. Both victim hands showed no clear scratch or defense marks, only faint minor abrasions. This was explained by loss of motor control under MDMA influence. Supplemental scene photos also confirmed no binding or tying traces on the body, indicating control in a short time, possibly while seated or lying. Cross-referencing decomposition timeline with Lake Gull environmental conditions, the team estimated time of death around the night of March 12 to early morning March 13, 2011. Matching the reported disappearance, the medical conclusion was written clearly by Dr. Hart in the minutes. Cause of death, asphyxia by strangulation. Contributing mechanism, loss of resistance due to high MDMA and ethanol influence. This 23-page report was signed and sent to Lieutenant Ellen Ferris and the Crow Wing County Prosecutor's Office. In the expert comments section, Dr. Hart added that neck damage showed force direction from left to right, consistent with right-handed strangulation by another person. No evidence of self-infliction or fixed object entanglement. The toxicology report's final line stated, "No water in lungs. Histological signs and stimulant levels indicate mechanical asphyxia death, not drowning." Upon reading the conclusion, Lieutenant Ferris noted in the file a short summary, death by strangulation while under stimulant influence. Behavior nature, intentional. She requested full backup of all autopsy results, including microscopic images and MDMA concentration charts, into case file 1174L as legal evidence. BCA simultaneously sent report copies to the prosecutor's office to prepare case reclassification procedures. The internal bulletin issued that day stated briefly, Case 1174L forensic conclusion, homicide by strangulation. After over 12 years, the final forensic conclusion completely eliminated accident theories and placed the case in the intentional crime category, paving the way for the official criminal investigation phase. After the forensic report confirmed Anna Lowell's death by strangulation, Lieutenant Ellen Ferris shifted the investigation to digital data, previously limited by 2011 technology. The BCA technical expert team was tasked with recovering all related electronic data, including mobile phones, vehicle GPS, and cell tower logs. Original devices had been stored in the evidence vault for over 12 years. An early iPhone belonging to Anna, 2 mobile devices for Marcus and Clark, and a GPS system mounted on Marcus's Ford Ranger pickup. All were processed using Cellbrite Premium mobile data analysis tools, allowing retrieval of deleted data, message drafts, and app logs, even parts unreadable by traditional methods before. The decryption process took 3 days. When the team recovered the final data, a series of new discoveries immediately changed the entire investigative direction. In Anna Lowell's phone, beyond previously sent family messages, Cellbrite detected an unsent draft saved at 23:09 on March 12, 2011. Just dozens of minutes before her last sighting. The short message, with no recipient, "I'm scared." This single line, with timestamp matching her cabin departure, was extracted intact and filed in the technical report. According to the analyst, the draft was typed on the phone keyboard, then exited without sending, possibly due to signal loss or sudden interruption. Lieutenant Ferris noted, "Message expresses fear psychology right before victim disappearance." On Marcus Laird's device, call logs showed 2 short signal connections between 2340 and 005, matching the time he claimed to search for the flashlight. Cell tower data, recross-checked with new positioning systems, showed Marcus's phone leaving the cabin area, moving south, stopping about 12 minutes at the Lake Gull dock, the exact 2023 body discovery site, before returning. The GPS system in his Ford Ranger recorded a similar route. Engine start at 2339, stop at 2352. Coordinates N46 degree 2421, W94 degree 2018. Then vehicle returned to cabin at 006, perfectly matching mobile tower data. GPS recovery was deemed a critical breakthrough, as in 2011 police could not extract data due to tech limits and device password lock. The technical report stated clearly, GPS data proves Marcus Laird's vehicle was at the dock area from 2339 to 2352 on the night of March 12, 2011. Matching Anna Lowell body discovery coordinates. Simultaneously, Clark Henning's phone data was analyzed for cross-reference. Logs showed his device never left the cabin area that night, reinforcing his prior statement of staying inside. All data was charted on a digital map: cabin phone signal point, dock, body discovery location. These points formed a continuous line, matching exactly in time and distance. Ferris reviewed everything and concluded, "This route shows purposeful movement, not searching." Short stop at dock on murder night, matching body discovery after 12 years. Need to consider body transport and concealment hypothesis. The 47-page technical team compilation report was submitted to the Crow Wing County Prosecutor's Office. In comments, the Cellbrite lead engineer wrote, "No time sync errors, data recovered fully original, all indicators authentic." Attached were photos of Anna's draft message, "I'm scared," displayed clearly, slanted text, stored in temporary memory. BCA behavioral analysts believe this unsent message showed immediate reaction to a direct threat, no staging signs. Combined with positioning data and forensic results, Ferris affirmed the case beyond doubt. Victim died by asphyxiation. Body placed in water, and suspect vehicle route led exactly to the discovery spot. The BCA internal report on April 12, 2023, stated, "Based on digital data, DNA evidence, and forensic conclusion, high probability victim died in cabin and transported to lake. Behavior shows intent." The final handwritten note by Ferris on the minute's margin. The unsent message is her last words. After the electronic data recovery results and forensic findings were consolidated, Lieutenant Ellen Ferris and the BCA investigation team unanimously proceeded to the formal interrogation phase of the primary suspect, Marcus Laird. A summons was sent to his residence in Wisconsin Rapids, where he had lived since 2012 as a freelance sales employee. The notice was delivered through local police per interstate cooperation protocol. On May 3, 2023, Marcus appeared at the BCA St. Paul office, where an interrogation room was prepared. The session was recorded and lasted nearly 4 hours. Initially, he maintained a calm demeanor, repeating the old story that Anna left the cabin that night to get fresh air, and he only searched around the house and drove around the lake out of concern. Ferris sat across from him, turning file pages one by one, presenting evidence slowly. First was the DNA report. Touch DNA perfectly matching Marcus, collected from the evidence at the porch where Anna was last seen. Then the GPS data from the Ford Ranger pickup and cell tower logs, proving he left the cabin that night, stopped for 12 minutes at the dock, exactly where the body was found. Finally, she presented the printout of Anna's unsent message, with the brief words, "I'm scared." Upon reading it, Marcus fell silent, eyes down on the table. About 2 minutes later, he changed his tone, saying he might remember the timing wrong and that Anna seemed anxious, but nothing serious happened. Ferris pressed, "Can you explain why your DNA appears where she was last seen, and why your vehicle stopped precisely at the area where the body was recovered?" Marcus vaguely replied that maybe he went looking for her and crossed the porch, and the dock stop was just coincidental. However, the digital data timestamps made that statement inconsistent. As Ferris continued probing about any arguments or conflicts in the cabin, Marcus grew flustered, repeatedly changing topics. He said Anna had taken ecstasy brought by Clark and might have had a reaction. When reminded that Clark Henning was deceased and that body toxicology showed abnormally high MDMA levels, Marcus fell silent, offering no further response. The interrogation shifted to formal status when he was informed of his right to remain silent and right to counsel. After nearly 4 hours, Marcus requested to end the session and left without signing the statement confirmation. The BCA internal report stated clearly, subject changed statements multiple times, denied responsibility, but did not refute scientific evidence, showed stress when confronted with GPS data. Following the interrogation, Lieutenant Ferris held an emergency meeting with the Crow Wing County Prosecutor's Office. Prosecutors determined the evidence chain, including DNA, positioning data, inconsistent statements, and forensic conclusions, was sufficient for arrest and preliminary charges. Under Minnesota statute, they agreed to charge manslaughter, second degree, meaning causing death through violent or reckless conduct while under the influence of stimulants, but lacking elements for premeditated murder. On May 8, BCA formally filed for an arrest warrant with the Crow Wing District Court, attaching the full evidence file. The warrant was approved 2 days later, signed by Judge Janet Erickson. On the morning of May 10, 2023, at 6:20 a.m., Marcus Laird was arrested at his Wisconsin Rapids home by a joint BCA and Wisconsin Rapids police team. The arrest proceeded orderly, with no resistance. He was read his Miranda rights on site, then transferred to Crow Wing County Detention. In the arrest report, the lead officer noted, subject cooperative, but declined to answer questions about the case. Upon charge notification, he only said, "I knew this would come sooner or later." Pretrial detention was ordered the same day, with no bail due to case severity. That day, the prosecutor's office issued an official press release. After over 12 years of investigation, Marcus Laird, 51, has been arrested and charged with manslaughter, second degree, in connection with the 2011 death of Professor Anna Lowell in Crow Wing County, Minnesota. The investigation was conducted by BCA in coordination with the county prosecutor's office and Wisconsin police. News of the arrest spread quickly across local papers, bringing the seemingly forgotten case back to public attention. In her report to the BCA director, Lieutenant Ferris wrote, "After 12 years, we finally have the first legal basis to close the investigation phase. The scientific evidence has spoken." After Marcus Laird's arrest and the Anna Lowell case file was officially shifted to criminal prosecution status, BCA conducted a comprehensive internal review to reevaluate the entire 2011 initial investigation. This report was compiled at the direct request of the BCA director and the Minnesota Attorney General's office, aiming to identify why a clear homicide case was overlooked for over a decade. The review lasted nearly 2 months, collecting all old documents, scene minutes, photos, statements, and reports from initial participating units. Results revealed a series of systemic errors that caused the 2011 investigation to stall far earlier than it should have. The report opened with a frank assessment, technical methods and behavioral evaluations in Case 1174L did not meet crime scene investigation standards. Initial assumptions were subjective, leading to misguided direction throughout the early phase. The first error identified was failure to conduct sufficiently deep and wide sonar scans during the 2011 search operations. Per archived records, the rescue team used only single-frequency sonar with a maximum depth of 1.5 m, while Lake Gull's bottom at the dock area averaged 3.5 m deep. Scan data was then noisy due to bottom mud and roots, causing the object, later confirmed as Anna Lowell's body, to remain completely undetected on screens. In the technical comments section, the BCA hydrographic specialist wrote, "With multi-frequency or wide-angle equipment, the object could have been detected in the first week." The report also noted that the 2011 search radius stopped at 500 m around the cabin, excluding the dock area, despite phone data then showing signals moving south from the cabin. The old minutes cited reason as prioritizing living areas, ruling out accident first. BCA assessed this as a serious tactical error. Lack of coordination between scene investigation and primary data analysis. The second error was not performing DNA testing on cabin-seized evidence, though samples, including towels, glass cups, and floor liquid stains, were fully sealed. Due to technological and budget limits, the agency then only conducted basic chemical tests, identifying ethanol, but not extracting genetic markers. This overlooked the only physical evidence linking the suspect. The 2023 internal report stated, "Failure to analyze DNA in 2011 was the pivotal oversight preventing the case from shifting to criminal investigation." Touch DNA was not yet widespread, but samples were storable and fully eligible for analysis if properly directed. The third error was misassessing suspect behavior and risk level. In 2011, Marcus Laird was questioned but not detained, as police believed he was cooperative and truthful. The initial behavioral report described him as calm, no clear deception signs, while interrogation logs actually showed multiple statement inconsistencies. Ferris commented, "Investigating officers did not apply timeline cross-verification or objective data checks, missing the golden investigation window." Additionally, the team did not fully review Marcus's history, including stored violations and past violence in the state justice system. Failure to retrieve priors led to underrating suspect risk. The next error involved hastily classifying the case as undetermined missing after only 3 months without completing forensic tests or finding persuasive evidence. The 2011 report stated, "No crime or accident evidence," without specifying scientific basis. BCA attributed this to poor coordination between command levels and field forces, plus public pressure to close the file for local stability. In the systemic analysis section, the 2023 team wrote, "Rapid decision-making based on assumptions of voluntary departure or accident is a classic cognitive bias in investigation when the initial hypothesis dominates the entire search direction." The internal report also noted an objective factor: extreme cold weather impacted evidence collection. However, the team stated this was not the primary cause, but rather lack of winter-specific protocols. BCA proposed standardized guidelines for cold condition scenes, including preserving samples at proper temperatures to avoid DNA destruction, maintaining stable heated power for equipment, and using specialized vehicles for ice-covered access. One specific recommendation stated, "All lakeside winter scenes require minimum dual-layer sonar scans, surface and mud layers, before concluding no objects." The over 80-page compilation report concluded with 1. Failure to locate the body in 2011 stemmed from outdated survey equipment and limited search radius. 2. No DNA testing was a direct operational oversight impacting investigation outcome. 3. Misassessed suspect behavior led to missing expanded interrogation opportunities. 4. Early missing classification violated BCA and FBI recommended protocols for adult disappearances. 5. Lack of winter investigation procedures suited to Minnesota geography. The report ended with the BCA director's comment, File 1174L proves technology never replaces investigative discipline. Had basic protocols been followed, Anna Lowell could have been found in 2011. Today's results are not just science's success, but a reminder of every professional's responsibility. After completing the internal report on 2011 investigative errors, Lieutenant Ellen Ferris directed the next step in file modernization, full 3D scene reconstruction. The goal was to connect the forensic evidence chain, digital data, and statements to precisely determine subject behavior sequence on the night of March 12, 2011. BCA partnered with the University of Minnesota's Criminal Spatial Analysis Lab, using LiDAR scanning and dynamic 3D modeling to recreate the cabin, terrain, and weather environment. The process began by re-scanning the actual cabin, still standing on Lake Gull, with millimeter-accurate laser equipment. Every interior surface, from dining table and hot tub to wooden porch, was captured as point cloud data. Simultaneously, March 12-13, 2011. Weather data was pulled from NOAA archives. Temperature -9 degrees Celsius, north wind 12 kilometers per h, high humidity. These parameters were input into the simulation model to accurately recreate the incident night's physical conditions. Once the scene was complete, the technical team input movement markers based on Marcus Laird's GPS and phone logs, combined with 2011 cabin maps. The 3D model showed when Anna left the dining table for the porch. The hot tub was operating at 108 degrees Fahrenheit, above safety standard. Marcus stood near the kitchen. Clark in the living room area. Using scene heat maps, the simulation determined the distance between Anna and Marcus at that moment was only about 2.4 meters, closer than initial statements. Integrating forensic data, especially neck hematoma and Marcus's DNA on the porch floor, the behavior reconstruction software showed the most likely scenario, a physical action occurring within the hot tub area, causing Anna to lose consciousness in 20-30 seconds. The medical examiner confirmed death by mechanical asphyxia, consistent with seated manual strangulation in water. The model replayed the movement sequence, Anna seated left of the tub, Marcus standing behind, possibly leading to a scuffle or impulsive violent act under stimulant influence. When body temperature and asphyxiation timing simulations were applied, the program showed the victim lost autonomic reflexes after about 90 seconds. Timestamp synchronization matched GPS records, 2338, 2340, aligning exactly with Marcus's vehicle startup. The next phase of the simulation reconstructed the behavior after the incident. Based on autopsy results, the team assumed Marcus panicked and pulled the body out of the tub. His DNA trace on the porch floor corresponded to the temporary placement position of the victim's body. When cross-referencing mud samples on the blanket wrapping the body, geological analysis confirmed the adhering soil matched the composition of the rear porch area of the cabin. Evidence affirming the body contacted the wooden floor before being taken outside. In the model, technicians input parameters for weight, air temperature, and snow hardness that night. Simulation results showed an adult could move a 55, 60 kilograms heavy object from the cabin to Lake Gull in 15-20 minutes using a pickup truck, matching the time frame recorded in Marcus's GPS data. To ensure objectivity, the reconstruction team tested alternative possibilities, including accomplice involvement or victim death in the lake. When inputting these variables, the software yielded probabilities below 8%, due to no traces of a third person or second vehicle in the area. Conclusion: no signs of accomplices. The third simulation phase recreated the transport stage. Based on GPS maps, the team determined the Ford Ranger left the cabin at 2339, traveled down the slope to the dock, and stopped at coordinates matching the 2023 body discovery site. The model displayed the path in red, aligning 99.8% with the actual route. At the stop point, virtual lighting recreated moonlight and water reflection. The simulation showed the driver could open the truck bed, pull the blanket-wrapped object into the water without fully stepping off the shore. Upon release into -0 seawater, the victim's body quickly sank due to weight and wet fabric. The 3-meter depth and surrounding roots trapped the object, preventing drift, perfectly matching the body recovery location. These parameters were compiled into a 67-page technical report titled Reconstruction Report, Gull Lake 1174L, including 3D simulation images of the entire cabin, movement directions, and body disposal process. In the conclusion section, the expert team wrote, based on the chain of physical, forensic, and digital data, the reconstruction model affirms the most likely scenario: the victim died in the hot tub by strangulation. Suspect Marcus Laird panicked, wrapped the body in a blanket, transported it to the dock, and dropped it into Lake Gull between 23:40–23:55 on the night of March 12, 2011. No signs of accomplices or third-party involvement. Lieutenant Ferris reviewed the entire model in the BCA projection room. The 3D images showed the cabin at night, hot tub steaming, dim yellow light spilling onto the porch, and shadowy figures moving in the cold fog. She directed the technical team to package all simulation data, including interactive maps, dynamic render files, and results report for submission with the prosecution file. The official report was delivered to the Crow Wing County Prosecutor's Office on April 24, 2023, as supplemental evidence for Marcus Laird's prosecution. In the attached note, Ferris wrote, "The 3D simulation not only proves the behavior sequence, but also fills the 12-year gap in the case. The cabin has spoken for those who cannot." The BCA internal bulletin, issued the next day, stated clearly, Case 1174L 3D reconstruction completed. Sequence validated. Homicide confirmed. The simulation model was archived in the Minnesota State Criminal Database as the first technical evidence in state investigation history for a case revived after over a decade. The trial of State of Minnesota vs. Marcus Laird opened on the morning of October 17, 2023, at the Crow Wing County Courthouse in Brainerd. It was a closely followed local media event, a case forgotten for 12 years, now revived through DNA and digital analysis technology. Courtroom 2 was packed, from press benches to public seating. Anna Lowell's family sat in the front row on the left, hands clasped tightly. Across from them, Marcus Laird, 51, in an orange prison jumpsuit, gaunt face, eyes downcast, escorted by 2 deputies. Court-appointed defense attorney David Kinley sat beside him, reviewing the nearly 2,000-page file. Presiding judge was Janet Erickson, the same who signed Marcus's May arrest warrant. The trial lasted 10 days, divided into 3 phases: evidence presentation, arguments, and deliberation. Lead prosecutor Linda Vasquez, representing the Crow Wing County Prosecutor's Office, opened with, "Today we seek justice not only for a murdered woman, but for an investigation that went astray for 12 years. She summarized the event chain: Anna Lowell's disappearance on the night of March 12, 2011. Body recovered in 2023 from Lake Gull's bottom, and all scientific evidence pointing to one person: Marcus Laird, her boyfriend at the time. The first morning, prosecution presented DNA evidence. Forensic pathologist Melissa Hart was called as an expert witness. She detailed touch DNA test results on the cabin fabric sample, showing a gene sequence match with Marcus at an error probability of 1 in 10 billion. Next, BCA digital analyst presented GPS movement maps, phone logs, and Anna's recovered unsent message, "I'm scared." The large courtroom screen displayed the electronic map, Marcus's vehicle red path from cabin to dock, coordinates matching the body discovery site. This evidence segment was impactful. Many in the room fell silent as Anna's final message was enlarged on screen. On day 2, forensics presented the autopsy report. Dr. Hart described neck injuries, petechial eye hemorrhaging, and MDMA levels 10 times normal. She affirmed, no water in lungs. The victim died from strangulation while under stimulant influence. When prosecution asked, could the victim have self-inflicted those injuries, she replied curtly, impossible. On day 3, prosecution screened the BCA 3D reconstruction. Courtroom lights dimmed. The screen showed the cabin in snowy night, steaming hot tub, dim yellow light through windows, 2 figures moving slowly. The simulation sequence depicted the scuffle, Anna collapsing, Marcus wrapping the blanket, dragging to the truck, and dropping into the lake. The entire process lasted 15 minutes, matching GPS data. As the simulation ended, Prosecutor Vasquez said, "Science has reconstructed what silence could not. She died here, in this house." Defense opened rebuttal with familiar arguments. No direct witnesses, no camera footage, no clear motive. Attorney Kinley argued his client had an addiction history, but had reformed. That Anna's death could be accidental manslaughter from loss of control under MDMA. No one saw what happened, he said. And no one can prove Marcus intended to kill her. Defense also noted victim drug levels could cause seizures or natural respiratory failure. However, prosecution countered immediately. If accidental, why hide the body in a blanket and take it to the lake in the dead of night? During cross-examination, Marcus was allowed to speak, he said softly, insisting it never meant to harm Anna and that it was just an accident. He claimed after seeing her unconscious, he panicked, didn't know what to do, thought she was dead, and just wanted to take her outside. When prosecution asked, "Do you realize that action prolonged the investigation for 12 years?" Marcus bowed his head, silent. On day 8, both sides presented closing arguments. Prosecutor Vasquez stood in the center, hand on the thick file, declaring firmly, "No witness saw, but science witnessed. Defendant's DNA, where she was last seen. Digital data placing his vehicle where she was found. Forensics saying she didn't drown but was strangled. It's a closed logical chain. No confession needed, evidence speaks." Defense maintained lack of intent, requesting reduction to negligent manslaughter. After 2 days of deliberation, Judge Janet Erickson read the verdict on the morning of October 27. In dead silence, she announced, "The court finds the scientific evidence provided by prosecution meets the highest legal verification standards. Though no direct witnesses, the chain of DNA, digital data, and scene reconstruction proves defendant's actions caused the victim's death." The court finds Marcus Laird guilty of second-degree manslaughter under Minnesota law. Upon hearing the verdict, Marcus closed his eyes, no reaction. Anna's family burst into tears, embracing. Sunlight through the window reflected on old wooden benches, marking the moment a 12-year file finally closed. The judge sentenced 15 years imprisonment, with minimum 10 years served before parole consideration. In post-sentencing remarks, she said, "There is no victory in this case, only justice delayed." As he was let out, Marcus glanced briefly at Anna's family, eyes empty. Lieutenant Ellen Ferris stood by the prosecution bench, silent, nodding slightly, not in satisfaction, but because the truth finally had a place to rest. That afternoon, BCA issued an official statement. On October 27, 2023, defendant Marcus Laird was sentenced to 15 years imprisonment for second-degree manslaughter in the death of Professor Anna Lowell. The case was resolved based on DNA evidence, digital data, and 3D reconstruction technology, marking a significant advancement in Minnesota criminal investigations. Local media called it the case of time, proof that justice may be late but never loses track. The case of Anna Lowell, the woman who vanished in 2011 and was found only after 12 years, is not just a story of a crime clarified, but also reflects how modern American society views justice, science, and community responsibility. BCA's use of touch DNA technology, LiDAR sonar, and electronic data recovery to decode the case demonstrates contemporary America's faith in forensic science and verifiable data over intuition or unverified statements. In a country with thousands of unsolved missing persons files annually, this story proves truth never vanishes. It awaits rediscovery through persistence and proper technology. But the greater lesson lies in preservation responsibility and process trust. The 2011 officers stored samples despite case closure, enabling the next generation to find answers. In today's fast-paced America, where everything is quick, decisions, judgments, this story reminds that justice needs time but tolerates no carelessness. It also reflects personal ethics. Marcus Laird's concealment of guilt, even in panic, caused 12 years of suffering for the victim's family. In real life, truth is sometimes harder to accept than lies, but early confrontation is always better than delayed consequences. Anna Lowell's story is not just about one woman's death, but a warning that in a civilized society, responsibility, even small, can save a life, and truth, though late, is the only thing that can free people. Thank you for following to the end of the story, where justice, though late, found its way back after 12 years of silence. If you believe truth never fades, subscribe to the channel to join us in exploring more cases hidden by time.